Hi everyone, today I'm going to do an updated tutorial in HD as per my little contest to see which tutorials you fancied in HD. Now I've left my eyebrows to grow for about a week in preparation for this tutorial, and you can see all of the growth here and a bit here and up here. I tend to pluck my eyebrows, taking the hair away from the top and from the bottom. So I know that there are some people who say you should never take it from the top, but my eyebrows, I don't know, I think their natural shape is very different to how I want my eyebrows to be. So it is okay to take it from on top, as long as you make sure that you are still following a rather nice natural shape. You can see I'm feeling sort of the brow bone sort of along here. It's kind of just runs down to there and into the eye socket. So this is a threading tutorial, and threading is a really lovely, simple way to remove more than one hair at a time. Normally you could use wax or sugaring or plucking, any of those things. This is just an alternative which is a bit less painful, and once you get used to it and once you get good at it, it's so much quicker than any of those methods, and it's a lot more accurate too. This is a method for doing it on yourself. It's slightly different than if you would go to a salon and have it done, because sometimes the person doing it has a bit in their mouth which they use to guide, so it's not going to be as precise, which is why it needs a lot of practice. I wouldn't attempt this too seriously unless you've had lots and lots of practice. So the first thing to do is to take a bit of powder. I've just used a fine sort of translucent powder all over this area, and what that does is it stops the skin catching, because you can catch the skin much as you can with, say, plucking with tweezers. So I'm first going to groom my eyebrows, and to do that I use a little brush like this, and I will brush the hair upwards, and you can see that some hair is falling outside of that natural shape. Not a lot, because I do groom them quite often, but you can see all these bits here. So I have a pair of small sharp scissors, and what I'm going to do is trim away, and I'm going to try and do this with the camera so I don't move too much. Just trim away the excess bits, like that, and that just keeps them all really nicely groomed, like this. And there's some up here. And just take it easy, there's no reason to go mad. Okay, the next thing to do is then brush your eyebrows down, and this is the bit where you find loads of sort of growth. That the reason you do this is so that you don't have to do so much shaping. So there, you can see there's an awful lot going on there. What I first want to do is teach you about how to shape your eyebrows to a very natural sort of shape. Now looking sort of forwards, there we go, that's probably centred as much as I can. I'm going to look down a bit into my mirror so I can see this. This is the inside of your nose. I'm just taking sort of a handled brush. This is the inside of your nose. I go up like that. Take the brush along it, and that's where your eyebrows should start. Any sort of further away, and you're going to make your eye droop if your eyebrows don't start at the right sort of point. This is just the way I do it and the way I've been taught to do it. So if you feel you want your eyebrows a different shape, then go ahead. If you want something that's quite natural looking and shapely, then, you know, and that's going to suit your face and your eyes, then do it this way. So my eyebrows start here. I just sort of take a straight down the nose like this. Then where I want my arch to be is just, it's either dead centre like this, but I actually prefer to go off centre slightly, and then that gives me more room to have sort of a nice sort of arch like this. So you can then see that I take that through the eye like this, and then it's slightly over a bit. So there's two ways to measure that. First, go along like this and go through the pupil, a mark there, and then looking straight ahead, you'll see that it's just slightly to one side, the outside of the iris. And that's where my arch is going to be, just here. And then where your eyebrows end, it's kind of up to you, because you can always draw them back in if you feel they're a bit sort of short. And I kind of play with this quite a bit, trying to sort of get different shapes. So go back out and go to the corner of the eye. And you see that's where your eyebrow should end. And normally I just draw a little bit on there, because sometimes I like to have a more straight eyebrow. So do that on both sides. And if it helps you, you can mark it with pencil so that you know that you've got the right shape. And sometimes if you're deciding what you want your shape to be, and you want them to be exactly the same, which of course you do, that's a really good way of doing it. Just mark it out. So I'm now going to brush the eyebrow down. And you can see there are all these bits that need to be trimmed. I don't want to pluck those away because they actually fit in the main body of the eyebrow, and it would leave my eyebrow looking fairly sparse. They're not that thick at the best of times, so this is a really good way to make sure that you get a good shape without having to take away too much. There we go. You can see I've just trimmed that away. And just spend a bit of time doing that, because this is a really crucial bit. This is the thing that actually adds structure to your eye shape. Now forgive me while I try and get this just right. And just take small bits and then go back to it, because you don't want to hack a huge chunk out of the eyebrow. Like this. And that way you're going to get a really nice sort of natural looking shape. And then what I normally do is just trim so you get a nice straight just along here. Years of practice, and I think I used to have horrible eyebrows. They were too long, too thick, too arched, you know, all of those sort of problems that you have. And there, now you can see I've got a really nice natural shape. Just like this. And now you have to do less work with plucking or threading. Now I'm going to move on to the threading. If I bring up, I've got a piece of thread here, which is just from a reel of cotton. And you will have to change your thread every sort of, well, it depends how much hair you're taking away, but you'll soon notice when you're threading how it won't grip the hair as well and take it away. So, you know, keep an eye on your thread. If you're finding it, you're having to go over and over the same bit to pick up the hairs, just switch to a new piece of thread. So I've got a piece of thread here, you can sort of see that against my head, and I'd say that's about 20 centimetres. It's quite short. You can use a longer bit if you want to, but for me this is quite useful for manipulating small areas, because what can happen is what I'm going to do is twist it up. So I'm holding it in both hands like this, and then I'm just going to twist maybe about 5 times. You can put more twists in if you want, but what I want to have is just a short amount that I can manoeuvre easily. And the way to manoeuvre it is, so take it between your fingers like so. So I've got little pincery fingers here, or between several. So you're like making a puppet mouth. That's really bizarre. And as one opens, you can see that it moves to the opposite end. Same with the other side. And those knots in the middle are moving. So what I'm trying to do is go from one bit to the next. As these knots move along, travel along, they will, if you put them against your skin, pick up hairs and pull them away. And the reason I haven't got many in this little twist is because I want the ultimate control about where I go to. Practice this sort of bit quite a bit, because you don't want to just go zoop and then go straight off and take half of the eyebrow with it and end up with train tracks, unless you want train tracks in your eyebrows. Okay, so now I'm going to move on and do that. So I'm assuming that you've all had a good practice and you're feeling quite dexterous doing this, because sometimes one hand can be easier than the other, so just have a good play at that. If you're finding that the thread is cutting in to your fingers, you're kind of pulling it away too hard, you need to be kind of gentle. And I use the thumb to just kind of stop the thread from moving and slipping off my finger. As I said, you just need to practice. So, as I said before, I've popped some translucent powder over the skin to stop it catching, And I want you to listen carefully, because you'll hear, as the thread moves along, you'll hear a slight snapping noise, and that's the hair being plucked out. And what I do is I'm going to go above first to shape. And I'm sorry I can't get much closer than this. This is about as close, or it gets bleached out by the lights. So I'm just pushing the hair down. These are the bits I don't want to pluck out. Opening one hand and placing it just there. And that's just going to give me a nice sort of arch shape there. Don't push it into the skin like this, because that's just going to catch the skin. Just rest it lightly. And then we're going to open this hand and close this hand, and the knots are going to move towards this hand. Okay, there. And just listen, and you can feel it sort of grabbing the hair. You just got to be careful not to get the hair you don't want to get. And it's super quick as well, and it gets everything, even the really tiny hairs. And now I'm just going to go down. Can you hear that noise? I don't know if you can, but it's like a little snapping. And you can see I'm not wincing, it's not hurting. There will be a sensation of pulling, but that's okay. It's just a little pull. If you find it hurting, then you're doing something wrong basically, and you need to just practice, stop, practice, and just, you know, have a good practice on your leg or something. It's a good way to get the technique, so that you know you're not pushing too hard, or taking the wrong hairs away or something. So, and you can see it's getting slightly sort of reddened here, and that's just natural sort of reaction to having hair plucked away. But this is so quick. I don't use this anywhere else. I don't really need to use it. So some people use it sort of here, they might have hair here, or here. I don't really bother with that. Don't think I have a problem with hair there. You can do, but I think it's much more sensitive. I mean, I've been plucking my eyebrows for, I dread to think how many years and years, so the sensation doesn't bother me anymore. Here you kind of get sort of deadened to it, unless it's a really sort of thick hair, and then you're like, oh, that hurt a bit. So yes, if you're new to plucking or waxing or anything like that, you're just going to have to build up a tolerance over the years. Now I'm getting to the slightly trickier point, which is here. Because as I said, if you just let it go, you see how far it went all the way up there, and that would take out this whole section of eyebrow. So I'm just going to go really gently and slowly. And this is where you need to practice, because you just want to move it slightly. It's helpful if you don't close this hand. Closing the hand just makes it move over there. Opening it and leaving it slightly open, it can't go that far. So that's the sort of control that you need to practice. Even if you're just picking up 1 or 2 hairs at a time, that has got to be better than taking out the whole eyebrow by mistake. There, you can feel it, you can see it, and you can see how it's sort of grabbing them and pulling them through. It's a super quick technique. Now I haven't finished, but otherwise this video is going to be ridiculously long.